From dense patches of Oregon wilderness harboring preserved historic homes and their associated restless spirits, to breathtaking Florida galleries boasting unparalleled sculpture collections, alongside a wealth of ghostly activity, are you ready to brave our third list of picks for some of the most haunted museums in the United States? Number 5. The Lost City Museum. The Lost City Museum, or formerly the Boulder Dam Park Museum, and located off of South Moapa Valley Boulevard in Overton, Nevada, is one of 7 educational venues managed by the Nevada Division of Museums and History, which acts as an agency of the larger Nevada Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. Historically, this museum shares grounds with an actual prehistoric Anasazi site, which was brought to the attention of Governor of Nevada James Scrugham by brothers Fay and John Perkins in 1924, after which excavations and archaeological efforts would continue through 1938, during which period important finds were highly publicized, and the catchy moniker of the Lost City was picked up by the press. In 1935, what was originally known as the Boulder Dam Park Museum was constructed under the Civilian Conservation Corps in order to safeguard artifacts discovered through the area, and through the 1950s, the National Park Service would turn said establishment over to the state of Nevada, after which it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Lost City Museum remains open into the present and has grown to offer 3 exhibition galleries, a research library, a museum store, a small screening space, and a range of outdoor exhibits. Not surprising in the least, the whole of museum grounds are rumored to be haunted by the spirits of those who resided on site so many millennia past, whose presences, some claim, were awakened by the reconstruction of their ancient pueblos, and both staff and visitors to the museum have reported disembodied voices heard speaking ancient dialects, orbs in strange misty forms captured in photography, and the phantom smell of fire smoke when no blazes are present. Several informal investigations of the Lost City have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and extreme temperature fluctuations, while a handful of additional accounts tell of objects sighted moving on their own, of encounters with eerie, shadowy figures or full-bodied apparitions in native attire, and of the unnerving feelings of being closely watched, followed, or even touched by a presence unseen. Number 4. The Alvinpolisek Museum and Sculpture Gardens. The Alvinpolisek Museum and Sculpture Gardens, also referred to more simply as the Polisek, and located off of Osceola Avenue in Winter Park, Florida, is a popular museum showcasing representational arts while exhibiting regional and international artists that's dedicated to the preservation of the work of Czech-American sculptor Alvinpolisek. Historically, Alvinpolisek was born in 1879 in Moravia, and after taking up a profession as a woodworker would move to the States in 1901, after which he would attend the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in Philadelphia and the American Academy in Rome, and for 27 years would act as head of the Department of Sculpture at the Art Institute of Chicago. In 1950, Polisek would retire to Winter Park, Florida, where he would design his home to function also as a studio and garden landscape. In 1961, the Alvinpolisek Foundation was formed, with Polisek's house and gallery opened as a museum, and following Albin's passing in 1965, the museum would be maintained by his foundation. Alongside the roughly 200 or so pieces created by Polisek and his first wife, Ruth Sherwood, the Alvinpolisek Museum and Sculpture Gardens features a range of antiquities and alternating exhibits boasting local artists, and remains open into the present, offering guided tours of the historic abode and chapel, its iconic outdoor sculpture garden, a gift shop, and, according to tales told, a wealth of paranormal activity. From the time of his passing and onward, local fables surrounding the legendary artist's former abode and grounds have claimed the expanse is haunted by the spirit of the man himself, Albin, who loved his sculptures so in life that his soul likely refused to leave them after death, and both staff and visitors to the property have reported objects sighted moving on their own, disembodied footsteps heard hurrying about, and even encounters with a manifestation matching Polisek's description, who's interacted with select living at great lengths, often often offering advice and words of wisdom before vanishing just as suddenly as he first appeared. Additionally, in 1997, one guest would snap a photograph that has since earned infamy amongst paranormal researchers everywhere, in which a tear can clearly be seen suspended on the cheek of Jesus in Polisek's Station of the Cross that staff simply could find no explanation for. Number 3. The Mutter Museum. The Mutter Museum, located off of South 22nd Street in the Center City neighborhood of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is a medical museum standing as part of the College of Physicians of Philadelphia that contains an array of antique medical equipment and wax models, alongside a collection of anatomical and pathological specimens. Historically, in 1858, this collection was donated by one Dr. Thomas Dent Mutter for the purpose of research and education in the biomedical field, and under the stipulation, the college hire a curator, preserve and expand upon the collection, offer annual lectures, and erect a fireproof structure from which to house said amassment. An initial museum building was constructed in 1863 just off of Locust and 13th Streets. However, when the college constructed its current campus at 19th South 22nd Street in 1909, the museum would move with it, transferring its original cases and effects to this new site. From the time of Mutter's donation, impressively, the Mutter Museum's collection has amassed more than 25,000 artifacts, and into the present enjoys widespread popularity and an estimated attendance of over 130,000 annual visitors, while offering a wealth of information pertaining to the mysteries of the human physiology and to the evolution of medical treatments and diagnoses as a whole. Chillingly, contained within the museum's collection are body parts afloat in fluid compounds, fetuses long preserved, and old vital organs since powdered, alongside such novelties as the actual brain of Albert Einstein, President Grover Cleveland's tumor, tissue from John Wilkes Booth, and even an entire wall dedicated to the skulls of criminals. Not surprisingly, supernatural happenings documented on museum grounds are suspectedly tied to its wealth of spare biological material, with staff and guests reporting extreme hot and cold spots, lights that flick from on to off by themselves, and instances in which individuals are hit with inexplicable spells of unease, distress, or dizziness that have become so severe they've resulted in a handful of cases having to leave the property entirely. Also reported across Mutter's bounds are doors that open and close on their own, disembodied footsteps and voices heard from empty spaces, objects sighted moving inexplicably, and encounters with both shadowy figures and full-bodied apparitions in clothing spanning the ages, most notably with the specters of Confederate and Union soldiers near the exhibit housing material from the Civil War. Number 2. The Willamette Heritage Center. The Willamette Heritage Center, located off of Mill Street Southeast in Salem, Oregon, is a 5-acre museum site featuring 14 total structures, all listed on the National Register of Historic Places, some of which that were built locally and others that were relocated for preservation. Historically, in 1889, one Thomas Lister Kay, whose descendants would eventually found Pendleton Woolen Mills, would establish the Thomas K. Woolen Mill, employing a workforce of 50 who labored around 60 hours a week. Sadly, in 1895, this original mill was destroyed in a fire. On December 20th of 1895, ground was broken on a new brick mill that's actually the very mill we know and love today, and on May 15th of 1896, this new operation would open its doors to a grand ceremony featuring speeches, live music, and demonstrations. Following operation under 4 generations of K family descendants, in 1959, the old mill would announce its imminent closure. By 1962, all operations had ceased, and in 1964, the Mission Mill Museum Association was established in order to preserve the site, while ensuring it stay open to the public. Most recently, in 2010, the Mission Mill Museum Association would merge with the Marion County Historical Society to form the Willamette Heritage Center. The center remains open into the present, offering touring of its mill building, which features a wealth of educational materials pertaining to wool production through the 19th and 20th centuries, as well as a slew of fully restored houses and a church for exploration. Through its years in operation, the Willamette Heritage Center has been shrouded in a number of ghost stories and a wealth of local lore sure to issue shivers to even the bravest of souls. Inside the mill itself, within the turbine room, many have described sensing an angry or pained energy that it's thought is a result of a former workman who was either operating on a turbine that was still on, or that was accidentally turned on amidst his task, resulting in his death. At the 1841 Methodist parsonage, a spectral pastor has been observed leading small groups of spirits in worship. At the 1858 Presbyterian church, the sounds of a church service are heard when the building is closed and darkened. And on the bridge by the water wheel, the mysterious manifestation of a woman who it's claimed was murdered by her husband has been sighted running the crossing in desperation. Lastly, the entity of one Wayne, a former millwright and groundskeeper, has been known to materialize at random, bringing with him a calming aura, while seemingly causing all other paranormal happenings to cease entirely. Number 1. The Morris Jemele Mansion. The Morris Jemele Mansion, located off Jemele Terrace in New York City, New York, is a historic abode turned museum that boasts the title of being the oldest house in the aged borough of Manhattan. Historically, what was then dubbed Mount Morris would be constructed in 1765 under one Roger Morris, a British officer who was actually serving as a member of the Executive Council of the province of New York at the time, along with his American-born wife, Mary Phillips Morris. The Morrises, who were Tory sympathizers, would flee to England under the looming presence of the Revolutionary War, and for several months through 1776, the site would actually be utilized as a headquarters under George Washington himself, who would plan for and depart to his victory at the Battle of Harlem Heights from the comfort of the mansion. Following Washington and his troops' departure, the home would be taken over by Hessian soldiers, and due to the fact that the Morrises were loyalists, in 1779 it was actually confiscated by the Revolutionary government, who would sell the lands off for funding of the Continental Army. Following its confiscation, Mount Morris would be re-established as a farmhouse and tavern called Calumet Hall, which acted as a popular stop on the Albany Post Road. And in 1810, the prestigious abode was purchased under Stephen and Eliza Bowen Jemele and their daughter Mary, who, by 1882, would divide their 115-acre estate into separate lots and housing, much of which comprises the Jemele Terrace Historic District today. In 1903, the house was purchased by the state. In 1904, it was opened as a museum site. In 1945, the premises was fully renovated and refurnished. And into the present, the Morris Jemele Mansion remains open to the public, offering a range of touring options and annual events. Fitting the bill as our classic New England haunted mansion, the old Morris Jemele residence has long been subject to tales of purported paranormal activity, suspectedly related to the spirits of its many owners since passed, and those frequenting its bounds have reported disembodied footsteps and voices heard from empty spaces, objects sighted moving on their own or even floating in midair, and encounters with ominous shadowy figures that roam about. A range of stories surrounding the aforementioned Eliza raised suspicions regarding the death of her first husband, Stephen, who passed in 1832, after which Eliza would be listed as one of the wealthiest women in New York, and would remarry to ex-Vice President Aaron Burr in the front parlor of the mansion. Subsequently, Eliza would file for divorce from Burr in 1834, a filing which was granted in 1836 upon the day of Burr's death. Over the following years, it's said Eliza's mental health would deteriorate rapidly due to Alzheimer's, and preceding her passing in 1865 at the age of 90, many began whispering of inexplicable activity tied to her restless soul. To date, the manifestation of Eliza has been sighted sulking around the halls in a white or purple dress, producing disturbing noises, and has been known to yell at groups of children who cross her. Lastly, a handful of accounts tell of strange knocking sounds heard from within the walls, and of encounters with the entity of a drunk soldier who frequents the staircase, while informal investigations have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and instances of doors opening and closing on their own. And on one occasion, when a psychic was brought to the mansion to summon the spirit of Stephen Jemele, it was supposedly discovered that Stephen had either been murdered or, get this, buried alive. Incidentally, into more recent times, the silhouettes of both Burr and Jemele have been encountered in the cellar, and can usually be heard arguing late into the night. Taking its intriguing history and slew of purported supernatural infestations into consideration, we felt the Morris Jemele Mansion was the perfect choice as this list's most haunted museum in the United States. Thanks for joining us on our third list of some of the most haunted museums in the United States. If you enjoyed our histories and ghost stories, subscribe to our channel, like this upload, and share us with anyone you feel could use a good scare. We'll catch you next time.